Nobody was supposed to say it out loud. For years, owners carefully avoided hard numbers, choosing instead to talk about growth, culture, momentum, and progress. Safe, comfortable words that kept everyone calm. But something shifted, and once it did, pretending was no longer an option. It didn't happen at a press conference or on television. It happened quietly, inside a private room where raw data replaced highlights, viewership curves, revenue charts, and partner projections filling the screens. That's where the silence began. The league felt louder than ever. Social media buzz was exploding, yet the money wasn't moving the same way. The numbers didn't match the noise. And then one owner isolated a single variable, and everything suddenly made sense.
Clark, her NBC, the numbers for that game have finally been released. The executives over there already speaking very highly of her. Is there a potential position in the future? Are they going to be expanding her role? More appearances to come? Sunday night basketball, milestone for NBA on NBC Sports. Lakers-Knicks, 4.5 million viewers on NBC plus Telemundo, 5 million peak audience. Most watched regular season Sunday night NBA game since 2002, excludes Christmas Day. Sunday night NBA games. Now, a Sunday night NBA, is that ABC included, or the ABC games Saturday night games from back in the day?
Millions watched, but they weren't longtime WNBA fans or basketball diehards. They were regular people. Inside NBC Sports, producers noticed something they hadn't seen in years. Viewer attention didn't drop, it climbed. People stayed through the segment, rewound clips, and shared them far beyond sports circles. That night didn't just create buzz. It created leverage. By the next morning, updated projections were on the table, and that's when one owner stopped protecting feelings. According to multiple insiders, he said it plainly. This isn't incremental, it's exponential. Then he dropped the number that changed everything. 50 times. 50 times the projected viewership impact. 50 times the revenue acceleration. And 50 times the partner interest compared to baseline expectations.
Spotlight that comes with an NBA national broadcast. So he loved every bit of what Caitlin Clark did and what she brought to the broadcast. Now, this is where he started talking a little bit about having Caitlin Clark back more than that March 29th announcement. So it says NBC Sports is planning to bring Clark back later this season. Cordella confirmed that she is scheduled to appear as an analyst for the Knicks versus Thunder on March 29th. As we know, he also added that he hopes to see more of Clark moving forward, signaling that the door is open for additional appearances. While no expanded role has been formally announced, the comment suggested genuine interest rather than casual praise. So, hey man, I don't know. We might see Caitlin working that booth. That'll be dope though, man. That'll be dope. Of course, with everything going on with the WNBA, we don't even know if we're going to have a season, man. Nonsense.
50 times. That number was never meant to leave the room, but once it did, everything unraveled. Because if one player could multiply a league by 50, it exposed an uncomfortable truth. The league wasn't the engine, she was. The word spread fast. Media insiders confirmed it quietly. Advertisers noticed immediately, and conversations shifted in tone. Suddenly, calls were about positioning around her, not balancing attention across the league. Jealousy followed, not loud or reckless, but professional. Other leagues took notice of the NBC numbers, watching audience migration in real time, seeing attention move. And attention is currency. That's when the tension rose. Because for years, the unspoken rule was clear. No single player becomes bigger than the system. The system stays in control. Caitlin Clark broke that rule. Without trying. She didn't demand, threaten, or complain. She simply showed up and performed. And that performance forced the owner's hand. He went public, not with anger, but with math, showing flat, predictable viewership before her appearances, then revealing what came after. Spikes so sharp they looked unreal, revenue lines bending upward like someone had grabbed them and pulled. That's when he said the sentence that changed the season.
NBA presented to the players. This is the most recent proposal, and I guess they also brought this to the meeting on Monday. It's so funny, on all of these documents in the corner it says confidential, but they are currently circulating all around Twitter. So I want to go over some of these bullet points with you guys. The first slide, it said WNBA CBA proposal, goals for a win-win CBA. Number 1, substantially increase player salaries to reflect recent future business growth. That number 1 bullet point is something that Adam Silver has said many of times when he is asked about the WNBA CBA. This is, again, it seems to be why the two sides are on different sides. It seems like the WNBA wants to raise the salary enough to where they don't have to give a percentage of this gross revenue that the players want. And that's where the players are feeling like there's such a disconnect, because it seems like they would prefer the revenue split over the salaries just increasing. But again, you can see here, substantially increased player salaries, which they have, by the way. They've increased the salaries like 6 times the amount of what they used to be. Number 2, promote business health and profitability. And that has been such a big thing in all of these. And a lot of fans have chimed in like, the WNBA has never been profitable. And the WNBA is still young, you guys. It is going into its 30th season. And when we did the comparison of WNBA salaries in their 30th season, if they take this deal, and NBA salaries in their 30th season, and obviously we did the math for inflation, all those things, the WNBA players will actually be making more than NBA players were in their 30th season. So that's why I just don't think this deal is such a bad deal like all of the players seem to think it is, but the WNBA is still focused on good business health and profitability. Number 3, maintain incentives for team and league investments. Now this next slide shows
We underestimated her impact. Underestimated was a polite version. The truth was harsher. They didn't realize who was carrying them. The moment that statement hit the internet, the reaction was instant. Fans argued, comment sections exploded, and other leagues went quiet. Because silence usually means one thing. They're watching, and what they saw unsettled them. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring people to the WNBA. She brought them to basketball broadcasts in general. NBC saw new viewers. Sponsors saw new demographics. And the pie didn't just get bigger, it shifted. That shift created enemies. You could hear it in the coverage, feel it in the tone, see it in the sudden attempts to reframe the narrative, to remind everyone that growth is collective, not individual. But the owner had already said too much. Once numbers are public, you can't put them back in the box. That's when jealousy turned into panic. Because if one player can generate this much value, she doesn't need the league nearly as much as the league needs her. And that realization changes power instantly. The owner didn't backtrack. He doubled down.
So, obviously Caitlin Clark's voice, the biggest voice that can speak on this, because she's been the catalyst for the WNBA being in position for a transformative CBA, a change in salaries, the way that they're headed. So it's good to hear that she's confident. She's always expressed so much love around the league and what it can become and what it was and all of those things. But nonetheless, it's still got to be a deal that's done. So you can get to the WNBA draft later, after the free agency and after the expansion drafts. But hopefully, that's a good sign for WNBA fans that the league's biggest star is saying she's confident a CBA will get done. Then there were some other topics hit up on the broadcast as well, including her wanting to play at Madison Square Garden. That is where she was broadcasting from, the Knicks and the Lakers. It is a great arena. I've spent a lot of time in the Garden.
Lakers and the Knicks taking center stage here for the 302nd overall meeting. And for the first time ever, we've got basketball night in America, the first Sunday in February. And we're joined by our special correspondent. Welcome to the team, Caitlin Clark. Yes.
Welcome. MSG for a Knicks game, so it's pretty cool.
I know, it's our first Knicks game, first time feeling the atmosphere. We got to get you to play on this court one day.
We have to talk to Adam about that.
Can we make it mellow? Honestly, if there's someone
Even if it's a preseason game, we got to get it done. I don't think the Liberty will want to move a game over here, but we'll play anybody. That'll be fun.
Yeah. How could you describe maybe the atmosphere your first time in it?
Well, I think as a player, this is kind of when you feel the atmosphere the most, is when you're out on the court warming up. So, there's just a different type of buzz. And obviously when LeBron comes to town, it's probably really different. But
he explained how everything changed after NBC, how sponsorship calls suddenly came with conditions tied directly to her appearances, how negotiations that once dragged on for months became urgent overnight. That's when people realized she wasn't just altering viewership. She was rewriting timelines. Deals moved faster, decisions accelerated, and old excuses disappeared. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark stayed silent. No victory lap, No money talk. No response to the jealousy swirling around her. She just kept playing. That silence was brutal. Because when someone changes everything without saying a word, the system starts to look weak. The owner later tried to soften the blow, talking about teamwork, league-wide growth, and the importance of everyone. But the damage was already done. 50 times. The number stuck. Fans repeated it. Media ran with it. Other leagues watched closely, and behind-the-scenes strategies shifted overnight. Marketing changed, scheduling changed, media priorities changed. Everything pointed back to the same uncomfortable truth. Caitlin Clark wasn't riding a wave. She was the wave.
Iconic figure in basketball in the women's game right now, or the game in general. So we said, let's have a bigger conversation. And it's just so crazy that it feels like every other sport will just come out and say what it is besides the WNBA. The NBA is not scared to acknowledge that there's no more iconic figure in basketball. Not just the women's game, but possibly the game in general than Caitlin Clark. But we would not hear that in the WNBA space. We wouldn't hear that from WNBA media. But the NBA media and the NBA and the league itself is not scared to say it. Like we've seen it when Caitlin does golf events. It just seems like every league but her own is not scared to say the truth. But I do think it's
The jealousy wasn't personal. It was structural. Other leagues saw attention drifting, advertisers asking new questions, and fans choosing where to spend their time. And time is the one thing you can't manufacture. By the end of the month, the league had transformed. Not because of a rule change or a rebrand, but because one player forced honesty. The owner never meant to spark controversy. He meant to explain success. Instead, he exposed dependence, and dependence changes everything. Caitlin Clark didn't just grow the league. She revealed what it was actually worth. And once a league learns its true value, there's no going back to pretending. This wasn't hype, it was math. This wasn't marketing, it was reality. That's why it shook everyone so deeply. No one expected the truth to be this clear, this big, or this tied to one name. That's why the jealousy felt real, why the silence was loud, and why this moment will be remembered not as a debut, but as a turning point. The day the owner stopped hiding the numbers, the day the league learned who really drives it, and the day Caitlin Clark changed the business of basketball without asking permission, forever.